My name is Alexander Hagani. I'm 22 years old. I'm a native New Yorker, but I'm also a native New York Cityer. That's a thing. From a young age, I started going to sleepaway camps, summer camps, most importantly, a little camp up in Maine. Camp was kind of ingrained into my family's culture and like what they wanted me to do at a very young age. It was how they wanted me to gain independence. I started going when I was around 6 or 7 to day camps. That was kind of my thing. And then when I took the step up to go to a sleepaway camp, I never came home. And I went for 5 years as a camper and 5 years as a counselor. This camp has kind of been my lifeblood, everything that's pushed me forward and helped me achieve my goals in my entire life. My first year at sleepaway camp was an interesting time. I was excited to go to the sleepaway camp that I went to because 2 of my best friends from home had gone for years and their family had gone for years. So I was excited to join people that I knew. My parents signed me up for 8 weeks though, so 8 weeks at the sleepaway camp, where usually there were 2 sessions, 4 weeks and then 3 weeks afterwards, 4 weeks and then 4 weeks afterwards as well too. I was signed up for 8, but I was convinced that I was gonna stay for 4. So when 4 weeks came around and it was midway through the summer, all the parents were coming for visiting day. I was convinced that my parents were going to take me home. I remember the day before visiting day came, I grabbed my bag out of the rafters, started packing all my clothes together, and told all my counselors that I was ready to go. And they didn't believe me. They were like, Alex, you were staying for another 4 weeks. Your parents signed you up. You can't go anywhere. You're not going home. And little naive 11-year-old Alex didn't listen. I was so convinced I was going home. Parents come the next day. By the end of the day, basically I was holding on to the rear of their car as they were driving up the hill and out of camp while I was sobbing, and counselors had to hold me back. But after I got over that hump, like 2 or 3 days later, I was so glad I stayed, and I've gone back every year since. That first 4 weeks, that little dip in the pool was, I think, pretty tough for me, only because it was the first time that I was able to gain a sense of independence by myself, and it felt weird being 11, I didn't know what to do with it. And then after I felt comfortable with it, I never went back home. That is. I had trouble kind of finding a role model just at home. I was a kid of divorce and it was very hard to kind of look to one singular parent while both of them were split up in different households to figure out who was right essentially and who I should look up to when I was 8, 9, and 10. And then essentially once I got to camp, I found all of these 18, 19, 20 plus year olds, young dudes and women who knew what they were doing and they were my heroes. And to be on the other end of that when you're a counselor was massively rewarding. There's never not really a week where I look back and kind of sift through my mind of the influence and the impact that I gave to other kids, just the way that my counselors gave to me when I was a child. And granted, if a kid comes up to me at the end of the summer or comes up to a different counselor at the end of the summer and appreciates that and vocalizes that to them, that's amazing. But knowing that maybe I didn't vocalize it as a child to some of the heroes that I had, but it was still there in my heart, I know that it's still with them. So whether it's tomorrow or 5 years or 10 years down the line where I have one of these former campers that I had who send me a text or get on the phone with me or get on the phone with their hero when they were a camper, like that's what all the difference is. And the influence and the impact that a counselor in their 20s or late 20s or late teens can have on a 10-year-old to 15-year-old kid that's struggling to find a role model, struggling to look where to look. That's a massively important thing, and you're gonna learn so much more about yourself and what you have to offer and your leadership qualities, your strengths, and also your weaknesses, much more than you would have in any other summer, in any other time span that you could go anywhere else with your life. So for me, all in all, the reward that I received as a counselor was giving back to what I received as a child, which was just strong role models to look after, coming from a rough childhood to kind of look where to look and pick out someone to believe in. And when I had counselors that believed in me, and when I could be a counselor to believe in kids that might have not had that confidence before, that was massively important for me. And when I was 13, I really came back, and that was kind of the time where I think as a kid, I kind of decided to myself unconsciously that I was ready to take a step up and kind of become a confident person. And there were 2 counselors in my life who did a massive difference. While there were tons that helped me in every single way, there were 2 that I can look at and like call mom and dad. Counselor 1 was Jake, counselor 2 was Chris. They were there for me every single day through the highs and the lows. And they still are today, which is awesome. And that friendship that I have with them and that brotherhood that I kind of share with them and that also mentorship that they still give me, I can now give back to them, which has been really, really cool. So to be 22 and to be also counseling and helping your best friends and mentors who you had when you were 13 through life stuff is equally as important. But these 2 guys, through thick and thin, they would pull me aside, help me out with whatever need be, and be a part of anything, any trouble that I had or anywhere I needed to go. They would be there to sit me down, talk to me, give me confidence, instill me with confidence. And being 13 years old and not asking for help, which is a thing that I think a lot of adolescents do because their egos are too big or because we don't want to admit that we're going through stuff, was huge in my little bubble of a world. It was big for these 2 people who I saw as kings to come and give me their time and effort 24/7. Coming back to be a counselor at a summer camp after having been a camper, or I can imagine just hearing about summer camp, I think my main goal was wanting to give back to these kids what I received when I was a camper, because I saw how far it took me, and because I think I realized that by staying at home every summer, and if I didn't choose the camp route and I stayed back and I kind of tried to find myself through being at home, I wouldn't have been the person that I was. And I wanted to make sure that these kids who were kind of forced into summer camp as I was by their parents, because their parents knew that something good would happen but they didn't trust it, was equally important that they understood why as well too. And having felt it completely from opposite ends of the spectrum on both ways, not wanting to go whatsoever, having hesitations and wanting to leave to go home, from literally a week later to being like, I'm staying for the rest of my life. I felt something inside me was like changed because people had the confidence in me that I could be at camp and kind of, run a campfire skit if I wanted to, or go on the climbing wall if I wanted to, and do things I wouldn't do at home. So I think I made it a big goal for myself going back that I wanted to make sure that every kid felt the same way as well too. That they felt that even if they had never touched the zip line before in their lives, even though I'm deathly afraid of zip lines, that they could do it if they wanted to, and I'd be down there to cheer them on the whole entire time. And just through that one small moment of like cheering on a kid while he goes up the climbing wall, to help a kid who had eating problems, like eat his first bite of chicken, like ever. That was a massively rewarding experience in my life because I saw how strong these kids were as well too. And like through seeing how strong they were, thus I was gaining strength and leadership qualities, and a reward that I don't think I would have found anywhere else if I would have done anything else throughout my summers. It was a tough challenge. It was really hard. I found it to be a lot of delegating. In my own little kind of creative way, I kind of convinced myself that I had to run it like a basketball team. So it wasn't like a winning mentality I wanted to bring to a bunk, but it was a cohesive group mentality that I wanted to bring to make sure that even the weakest link was still supported by the strongest link. And that's what makes a team great. So I would consistently meet with counselors and kind of run through them and debrief with them how their day went, and how they felt the day was going, what kids to look out for, what areas of the bunk needed to be improved. And then every week I'd also look to see which counselor I would raise up, which counselor I would give a period to be with the kids the whole entire time while I take off. So even when I was taking off time for myself and kind of finding time for myself as well too, I was putting another counselor in a position of power for them to succeed while the kids were enjoying it and having all of their counselors around them, who every single one of them is a hero to them as well too. Like they want the tennis instructor to be with them at all times. They want the land sports instructor to be with them at all times. The drama teacher, they want them with them too. So for me, it was really important to learn delegation and to learn how to kind of take a step back and be a leader by taking a step aside. And that fact that I didn't have to always be the face that was there all the time. Didn't always have to be my voice, but I could speak through my fellow counselors to help lead these kids to the best possible outcome, which was just an awesome summer, and a summer full of communication where the kids could talk to us and tell us about what they wanted or how they wanted to have fun. Currently, I am about to go to receive my master's in film school. I can tell you that I've learned how to delegate jobs to people by just going to camp and then getting on a set and understanding that the cinematographer or the production assistant need to have or feel just as confident as the director or the actors or whatnot. So I'm trying to be a director slash writer slash producer, and I've learned so much more by just having a few summers at summer camp to learn how to work with people, which translates when you get onto a film set or when you get onto a music set and you're in a band. There's so many little things and little nuances that you learn from just being at a summer camp and working with kids and working with fellow staff members that you won't get anywhere else, because you're in a tight environment for 8 weeks working with the same children, trying to get to the same outcome for them all to enjoy themselves and for you to enjoy yourself as well too. Mic drop, but I can't because it's attached to my shirt.